The opinions and views expressed by individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of this network, their group, or other organization they may be involved with.
Looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of Tuesday evening news. Tuesday evening
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Psychedelic Reporters. For this Tuesday, here on NOK Network, the video news podcast focused on psychedelic medicine being reported in mainstream media. Shout out to the guys in Dead Ringer from Kirkland Lake, Ontario for the awesome intro track originally recorded by the Moody Blues. I am joined by my amazing joint hosts, Tara Simpson, along with the one and only Bufo Various, who has chosen all of our stories for us. Hello, Tara.
Well, hello, hobbies, and hello, everyone. I'd like to take a minute to introduce Bufo. He's our Sonoran desert toad, or Colorado mud toad. Did you know he emits DMT from his skin? And while that sounds like fun, park rangers would like to remind everyone, please don't lick that toad.
Don't that toad. Don't like that toad at all. Man, not at all. Hey, so I'm excited to jump right into the news articles because Arizona, that's where our buddy from the Waniac show streams his show from. And check this out. Arizona, this is from Fox10Phoenix.com. Arizona lawmakers weigh legalization of psychedelics for mental health treatment. And the brief is Arizona state senators met Tuesday to discuss expanding access to psychedelic drugs like psilocybin and MDMA for treating post-traumatic stress disorder, anxiety, and depression. Lawmakers are considering trigger laws and supervised medical access to prepare for potential federal reclassification of the substances which are currently Schedule 1 controlled substances. Wow.
Yeah, so Arizona lawmakers are crafting legislation to expand the use of psychedelic drugs for the treatment of post-traumatic stress disorder and other mental health conditions. What we know, substances such as ibogaine, MDMA, and psilocybin are currently illegal in Arizona and classified as Schedule 1 controlled substance. However, some researchers argue that scientific data is encouraging for the use of these substances to treat alcohol abuse, anxiety, and depression.
Arizona state senators held a committee meeting Tuesday to lay the foundation for new legislation. The committee is exploring several regulatory frameworks, including supervised medical access and trigger laws. If the federal government reclassifies the drug, there is growing support at the federal level to fast-track clinical research and Food and Drug Administration approvals, which lawmakers say could accelerate local inflammation.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, eh?
It is. It is. I get excited, our state and whatnot. But then it's like, it's like with cannabis. You get all excited it's happening, this and that. And then all of a sudden something happens and it's not the way that you were hoping, or it gets laid out in a whole different platform based on not feasible to the customer.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they implement some of this stuff in like real time settings, because as we know behind the scenes, these treatments have already been happening due to, legacy facilitators who have had great success, but they have their own way of implementing it that, in my opinion, is far less medical clinical setting. So it'll be interesting to see what the results are in a clinical setting. And do they get the same experience versus like going to a retreat where maybe they do things a little differently? They still give you the same medicines, just different implementation and follow-up, right? So it'll be interesting to see what comes out with all of these studies.
Speaking of studies, so VicNews.com is our next story. And Victoria News states that Victoria Startup launches Canada's first magic mushroom wellness center. And this is written by Olivier Lauren.
Yeah, for centuries, psilocybin mushrooms have been used by Mesoamerican cultures as well as in Europe and the Maghreb,
or I don't know how to say that.
Used for its hallucinogenic properties, the fungi were used in magical, therapeutic, and religious rituals. Producing an altered state of consciousness when ingested, psilocybin was said to unlock communication channels with divine power, enter in trance, and achieve greater enlightenment. Under their influence, users usually experience spatial disorientation, feelings of ecstasy, inner peace, and vivid visual hallucinations with a tendency towards introspection. While the consumption of these naturally occurring psychedelics may have been common in the past, their modern use is mirrored with legal restrictions and political controversies. Following the Reagan-era war on drugs in the 80s, psilocybin mushrooms have remained illegal in most U.S. states and in most countries worldwide. In Canada, their legal status remains ambiguous. Yet, one Victoria-based startup aims to show the potential benefits of the substance through Canada's first wellness-focused psychedelic therapy trial, which will examine whether therapist-guided psilocybin can enhance overall well-being. Following the footsteps of U.S. academic giants such as Johns Hopkins, Imperial College, and NYU, TherapSil is seeking to unlock the potential of psilocybin through their own scientific research. Their studies showed amazingly that after a single dose of psilocybin, end-of-life patients who were reporting really bad demoralization, depression, and anxiety were saying that it was one of the most important things I've ever done in my life, said TherapSil CEO Spencer Hawkswell. It seems to have cured their depression and their anxiety, and they were no longer upset about the fact that they were dying. They accepted it. It's on these very results that Hawkswell said of TherapSil was launched in 2019 with the hopes of similar promising outcomes. Psilocybin is a very effective tool that can be used in conjunction with traditional therapies, he said. It's also very safe since there's There's no lethal dose, so you can't die from eating it. And that's true. It has the same safety status as cannabis. No one has ever overdosed from taking too much cannabis.
No. Yeah, I totally agree. And the community-funded Silwell trial in partnership with SABI Mind Victoria, Creo, and Filament Health will combine the therapy with a supervised psychedelic session and integration therapy, explained Hawkswell. Unlike pharmaceutical-backed studies, the project is funded entirely by participant fees, community donations, and stakeholders. The study will involve adults age 18 to 65 who meet medically safety criteria, and eligible participants will pay $4,500 for the 3-week program. During the 9-week trial, participants will receive a dosage of 30 mg with the option of a 5 mg booster, and will be combined with group therapy to prove if psilocybin increases indication of wellness or not. After TheraPsil announced the launch of its program on October 15th, the news drew significant attention. While many on social media welcomed the initiative, others criticized what they saw as a steep price. Equally critical, Hawkswell thinks the same. It's a huge price tag, and we acknowledge that, he said. This is what we've been fighting for 5 years, and we want that reduced as much as we possibly can. So it's expensive, absolutely. But I hope one day, if your research shows the right results, we might be able to have the thing funded and approved through the provincial healthcare system. Hawkswell said the pricing reflects the cost of going against the grain, including legal fees, regulatory barriers, and the economic model that prioritizes profit over good solutions. You've got a government that is going to fight at every single stage, he said. Our healthcare system is set to prioritize patentable and profitable treatments, and actually should all these other treatments. He makes a great damn point. It's sometimes the focus gets lost.
Yeah, for sure. Hawkswell said that unlike a novel drug, which can take years and millions of dollars to develop and offers the potential for significant return, psilocybin mushrooms are ambiguous, inexpensive, and readily available, making them nearly impossible to secure funding for. The regulations in Canada are set up against unpatented and unprofitable drugs like psilocybin, because if you want to run clinical trials and bring psilocybin to market, you've got to fundraise about $50 to $100 million, he said. But how are you going to do that if you don't have investors who see a profitable asset on the other side, such as a patentable drug or treatment system that's going to make lots of money? And see, that's what it comes down to. It's all about the money. It's not about whether it actually helps patients. If they can't make big dollars off of it, they aren't interested. And that's really sad and scary that we live in that society. Yeah, psilocybin is neither of those because it's one treatment and it's very inexpensive and unpatentable. As a result, the financial burden of significantly proving psilocybin's efficacy rests solely on TheraPsil's shoulders. Faced with this deadlock, Hawkswell and his team rely on a stakeholders fund model to generate the scientific evidence needed to determine whether the psychedelic substance is beneficial. In turn, Hawkswell added that the situation shows a greater issue with the current system. 100% What a smart dude. Our drug and healthcare system is set up to prioritize patentable and profitable treatments and actually shun all these other treatments, he said, it's no wonder we're caught in this kind of cycle of chronic illness. And again, if we keep them sick, we keep them making us money. And that's just sad and wrong. Therefore, instead of the current healthcare model where people are medicated only after being diagnosed with a mental illness, Hawkswell believes in a proactive approach in which people could access medication to help prevent the onset of those illnesses in the first place if the studies prove fruitful. Our healthcare system is predicted on a diagnosis, which means we wait until someone gets really sick and then we treat them. It all goes back to money, he said. When the incentive is to keep people sick, the outcome is people are sick. Our goal is to bring psilocybin to market, so it'll cost just about nothing for patients. We want to make it available for wellness, but also for broad indications, which this notion of preventative medicines. We want to get people before they develop PTSD, anxiety, or depression. While there's still a lot of research to be done, Hawkswell and his team remain confident their work could benefit thousands of Canadians. As far as I'm aware, the world's first stakeholder-funded psychedelic clinical trial, he said, and if it's successful, we will take it all the way and we will search or seek a new drug application for psilocybin so we can have this drug approved for use in Canada and be covered under our provincial healthcare system. And I 100% love everything he is doing because, again, he knows what this is all about. This isn't about patients getting well. Our systems are all worldwide set up, designed to keep you in the system, keep you sick and reliant on medications that aren't actually fixing your problems. So if he can prove otherwise and make it accessible and affordable, I mean, drug companies are going to hate him, but it is what it is. We should be focusing on making everyone well, which is in turn going to make our governments more money. If they're not paying you to stay home because you're too sick to work, then you're actually out there contributing to our economy and paying back into our system. So I don't get why they are so stubborn about this and wanting to keep us all sick, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's well, and that's what I even, hear. It's if they get all through the patent and all wanting to make the big bucks, are we going to get to a point where now insurance, the big company, will accept it as well, and those treatments are then getting paid? If those treatments are getting paid, more people would seek psychedelic treatments at the states that are already open for like $6,000 a treatment session a week.
Right. And should it cost $6,000 a patient per treatment? I don't think it should. I mean, you can buy a gram of mushrooms from a legacy grower for probably $10, right? So what is it that's costing thousands and thousands of dollars other than people lining their pocket off the back of sick people? And I get everyone's got to make some money, but $6,000, I don't have $6,000. And if my insurance isn't covering it, I'm not getting treatment. And can we not lower that cost somehow? There's got to be a way to make this even more affordable and accessible.
Yeah. No, I agree. 100%. So check this out. We have another study from SciPost.org, and intranasal 5-MeO-DMT effects peak within 15 minutes and lack strong visual study finds. And this is written by Vladimir Hendrich.
Yeah, so this is interesting because I know that typically DMT is inhaled via, like vaporization. But this is all about a intranasal spray. So this is kind of neat. A study examining subjective experiences after intranasal application of 5-MeO DMT found that its effects peaked 8 to 15 minutes after application. Conscious altering effects typically ended after 45 to 60 minutes. The research was published in Scientific Reports, and there's a clickable link there if you want to read that. 5-MeO DMT is a naturally occurring psychedelic compound belonging to the tryptamine class. It's found in certain plants and the venom of the Inicialis alvarez, Sonoran desert toad, as well as produced synthetically. The substance is known for producing extremely intense and short-lasting altered states of consciousness. Its effects typically include profound change in perception, a strong sense of ego dissolution, and altered awareness of time and self. Compared to DMT, the effects of 5-MeO DMT are less visual but more immersive and abstract. Users report the experience as emotionally powerful and sometimes overwhelming. Research interest in 5-MeO DMT has increased due to the potential relevance of understanding consciousness and mental health. However, scientific evidence on this therapeutic effect and risks is still limited. Study author Anna O. Ermakova and her colleagues wanted to understand the experience of individuals participating in a study that involved taking 5-MeO DMT intranasally to examine its pharmacological effects. The study focused on the psychoactive effects of 5-MeO DMT, while the broader clinical trial enrolled 50 healthy volunteers. This specific study analyzed interviews from 40 participants aged 25 to 55 years. There was no prior experience of using psychedelics in their lifetime. 32 participants received doses of 5-MeO DMT ranging from 1 milligram to 12 milligrams. Each participant was assigned a single dose. Each participant received 8 participants received a placebo, had intranasal application of a substance that did not contain 5-MeO DMT and produced no effects. 5-MeO DMT used in the study was in the form of dry powder for nasal application. In the dosing session, a participant would take his or her assigned dose, and for up to 90 minutes after that, provided ratings of overall subjective drug intensity. That's neat.
It is neat. As soon as possible after the dosing session, the participants took part in guided interview discussing their psychedelic experience. Study authors used natural language processing software and machine learning techniques to interpret transcripts of participants' interview responses. Results show that the psychedelic effects of 5-MeO DMT started between 0 and 2 minutes after application. The effects peaked at 15 minutes after intranasal application and gradually dissipated from 15 to 40. Oh, it's intranasal. That's what it is. Application and gradually dissipated from 15 to 40 minutes. Some effects lingered up to 90 minutes in some participants. The peak was slightly longer with higher doses and dissipation and lasted long. Consciousness altering effects typically ended 45 to 60 minutes after application. While the effects lasted, participants reported alterations in sensory and emotional experiences, cognition, or metacognition, and arousal and perceived relationship between self and other the acquired. 5-MeO DMT has distinctive profile of subjective effects related to published reports of other psychedelics with a short duration of action, relative lack of visual effects, strong emotional or bodily experiences, and the potential to elicit therapeutically relevant content such as emotional breakthroughs and personal insights. Study authors concluded the study sheds light on psychoactive effects of 5-MeO-DMT. However, it should be noted that the number of participants in the study was too small to draw definitive conclusions on the differences between 5-MeO-DMT doses. The paper mapping the phenomenology of intranasal 5-MeO-DMT in psychedelic native healthy adults was authored by Anna E. Ermakova, Fiona Dunbar, Matthew Zayanev, and Raphael Millionaire. That's pretty cool.
It is. Absolutely. And I mean, I've heard that there are differences between 5-MeO and the synthetic as far as its effects. And that comes directly from people who have actually taken it and done both. So it's interesting that they're choosing to use the more natural 5-MeO versus a synthetic.
Well, and through a nose, it's not. Okay. So when I'm on one time I tried was a smoking. I was in the pipe. It was an herb, and we smoked it. And he said, it's like, oh yeah, they put it here, that it's a root, blah blah blah, you know. And we ended up smoking it, and then went. Just took them up, you know, and it was a fast peak, man, and like grab you by the hoo-ha and just like kind of kick me into outer space and into a realm, and smoking isn't good for you, so a snort through the nose would be. But my thing is what's the safety on that from preventing yourself from giving yourself a couple of two snorts? Self-preservation, I mean.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, I get smoking of anything is not great for our lungs. Most DMT, however, is vaporized, not necessarily combusted, but vaporized. Uh-huh. But there are people who maybe have lung issues that can't handle even the vaporization. So an intranasal application could make it more accessible for some patients. But again, what are the long-term effects? I mean, we know that if you're snorting white powders up your nose of the coca variety, that it can lead to erosion in your nasal passages and it can cause all sorts of issues. So putting anything in your nose versus your lungs, I mean, what are the benefits and risks of doing both? So that should be something that's studied as well. Like, does it cause any problems with your nasal passages? Because that could cause problems for patients too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And are the effects different too, right? Because we know smoking cannabis versus ingesting cannabis has different effects, right? Yeah, so if you're doing it right to the nose, is that getting to your brain faster versus inhalation of some kind? And that could be something that could be studied more in depth as well.
Mr. and Mrs. Research Dudette, can you please consider us puppets as a guinea puppet to be able to test which one for vaping and smoking and which one for snorting your nose is better and how the highs are different?
Absolutely. Sign Hobbies and his crew up.
So, with terms of condition that you talk to Kim Cooper and Tara and open your eye with the results.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, wait, that's the closing. So, hey, it's medication time.
That's right, folks. It's time to pay some bills. So stay tuned for a word from some of our sponsors, and then we'll return with more articles Bufos chosen for us making mainstream media news.
Back in 4 minutes and 20 seconds here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network.
Dirty Dave, award-winning cultivator for over 4 decades. Dirty Dave, prized genetics fueled by advanced nutrients, original OG organics. Dirty Dave, award-winning products available at these fine establishments. Ask your shop to carry Dirty Dave. Contact us at dirtiesdoggies@gmail.com.
Join us for NOK Network monthly specials, 12 months a year, movie nights, spotlights on entertainment, and live on location coverage. Stay up to date about upcoming programming by subscribing to NOK Network on Rumble, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, Twitch, and Facebook. Check out our webpage at www.noknetwork.com.
Hi, my name is John Mark, aka Sublimator Warrior, and I would like to welcome you to Smoke Signal in Tyendinaga.
One dab make your whole dome drip sweat. One dab make the homies all dip set.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Ooey, ooey, gooey, that's a sticky dab. Sticky dab. Might just have to put this one on Instagram.
Smoke Signals,
Go ahead,
Tyendinaga.
hold it in, feel it in your wrist.
Smoke Signals, Tyendinaga.
Check us out in Tyendinaga. 55 Highway 49 in Tyendinaga. It's on the res, and we're open from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. 7 days a week.
Now we get back to the show.
And we're back from our medication session live here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network.
And we have another set of stories coming at you from the realm of psychedelic medicine. So let's get at it. I was going to make it into a musical. That was kind of fun. Hey, so we ended the year on this article, and now it is finalized from marijuanamoment.net. DEA boosts legal production levels for psychedelics like psilocybin and DMT in final rule for 2026. And this was published on January 5th from Kyle Yeager.
Yeah, so this is really cool. The Drug Enforcement Administration has finalized quotas for legal production of controlled substances in 2026, further raising the amount of certain psychedelics that can be made for research purposes in the new year. In a notice published in the Federal Registry on Monday, DEA increased its quotas for psilocybin, psilocin, and DMT compared to what the agency proposed in a draft rule in November. DEA said in its initial proposal that it was moving to boost the quotas for psychedelic substances so researchers can study whether they could serve as potential treatments for conditions such as post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. Based on public comments the agency received, it said the amounts were adjusted to be at higher levels than were proposed without expanding on the scientific rationale for the individual quota increases. The production goal for psilocybin rose from 30,000 grams last year to 40,000 in the initial rule for this year, and has now been raised to 50,000 grams in 2026 final rule. The psilocybin or psilocin quota increased from 36,000 grams in 2025 to 48,000 grams in the initial 2026 rule before being raised again to 80,000 grams in the final rule for 2026, more than doubling this in the span of a year. And that just shows that the increase is because the demand is there for the research, right? That's all I can think. They're doing more research. Obviously, they need more material.
Yeah. More studies, more everything.
Yeah. For DMT, DEA is proposing to increase the quota from 20,000 grams last year to 25,000 grams in 2026. In the agency's initial rule for this year, the quota for that psychedelic remained the same, but has since been revised in the final rule following public feedback. Other substances saw increases from last year in 2026 initial rule, have not been further adjusted in the new final rule. Okay, so there's some stuff's going up, but some stuff's staying the same.
Yeah, so that is the case for methylone, an MDMA-like compound. In 2025, the agency set a goal of 5,200 grams. But in 2026, it wants 30,000 grams produced. The production goal for substance was minuscule 4 years ago when DEA proposed the manufacturing of just 40 grams. The same quota was set in 2022 before increasing to 5,200 grams for each subsequent year until 2026 and is now being increased to 30,000 grams. DEA set quota of 30,000 grams of 5-MeO-DMT to be produced in 2026, an increase from 11,000 grams last year. That is a substantial boost from 2021's quota of just 35 grams. Over recent years, DEA has generally ramped up production goals for production in certain psychedelics as interest in therapeutic potential has grown within the public and scientific community. Proposed 2026 quotas for cannabis, THC, ibogaine, MDMA, LSD, and mescaline were not adjusted since last year, however. So, it's a lot of this is, but DEA isn't making it. Like, they're the oversight. They're the agency that allows how many grams are being produced for these clinical trials. So it's we got to remember that as well.
Absolutely. But it's cool that they're increasing, which means they're allowing more research to be done. I mean, this stuff isn't necessarily going to people on the street. It's going to researchers in labs around the world, probably, for their clinical trials. So that shows you how big of a demand. If they went from 35 grams in 2021 to like they're at like 50,000 grams, like that's an insane increase in some of those substances, but it's needed for research. How do you split up 35 grams amongst how many university studies that are happening, right? So it shows that they're looking at this at least, but I have my doubts, right? Because again, they want to be able to patent it and make it profitable. So it's not about actual health treatment for a lot of these big companies that are looking at this. It's about whether they can make money off the back of sick people and how much can they make.
Right.
Yeah.
Using the government to do it. No.
Exactly. Yeah. So these proposed 2026 quotas reflect the quantities that the DEA believe are necessary to meet the estimated medical, scientific, research, and industrial needs of the United States, lawful exports requirements, and establishment and maintenance of reserve stocks, DEA said in its proposed rule in November. The agency said that in setting the quotas, it took into account several factors, including projected demands for such a class as indicated by the procurement quota, information obtained by the federal health agencies such as the Food and Drug Administration, and other factors affecting scientific, medical research, and industrial needs in the United States, and lawful export requirements. The Controlled Substances Act required the Attorney General to set APQ for Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 drugs each year. Notably, that would mean marijuana would not be part of this annual research production list if the Justice Department follows through on an executive order signed by President Donald Trump last month, directing the Attorney General to move cannabis from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3. Whether that process is finalized remains to be seen. A report from the Congressional Research Service noted that DOJ could, in theory, decline to enact rescheduling or start the review process all over again, for example. So that's, we'll have to see what happens there.
Oh, yeah. I agree. So our last article comes it comes straight from stripes.com. Bill to advance Virginia or VA research on psychedelic drugs is led by 3 lawmakers who are veterans, by Linda F. Hersey.
The effectiveness of ketamine, magic mushrooms, and other psychedelic drugs for treating a variety of medical conditions in veterans would be studied under a bill led by 3 Republican lawmakers who are veterans. The Innovative Therapies Center of Excellence Act would establish 5 research centers at the Department of Veterans Affairs to examine hallucinogens for addressing chronic pain, post-traumatic stress disorder, substance abuse addiction, Parkinson's disease, bipolar disorder, and other conditions. Republican Jack Bergman of Michigan, a retired Marine Corps Lieutenant General, along with Reps. Morgan Luttrell and Dan Crenshaw, both of Texas and both former Navy SEALs, are co-sponsored. The sweeping legislation would facilitate studies to be federally facilitate studies to be federally illegal drugs that include MDMA, commonly known as ecstasy, psilocybin, which is magic mushrooms, and ibogaine, hallucinogenic derived from a West Central African plant. Ketamine would also be part of the study. The drug is federally approved for limited use as a prescription drug administered in clinical settings, including as anesthesia and depression treatment. The bill is pending a hearing before the House Veterans Affairs Committee, and a Senate companion bill is expected to follow soon, according to lawmakers. A 2-hour public forum is set for January 14th at the U.S. Capitol Visitor Center to highlight the legislation and the role of emerging therapies using psychedelic drugs to treat veterans at risk of suicide. The veteran suicide rate is roughly 2 times higher than the general population, according to the VA. I've said it before and I'll say it again. If psychedelic assisted therapy can treat a service member or veteran's PTSD or prevent them from taking their own life, then we owe it to them to take an active role in researching potentially life-saving therapies, Bergman said. And I couldn't agree more. I've got goosebumps rolling up my arms right now.
Bergman said the highest ranking combat veteran ever elected to Congress co-chairs the Congressional Psychedelic Advancing Therapies Caucus with Rep. Lou Curriu de Calif, who submitted the bill. A panel discussion at the Capitol Forum will feature Jay Kopelman, a former Marine Corps lieutenant colonel and author who chronicled his experiences using ibogaine and 5-MeO-DMT, an atypical psychedelic drug developed from the secretions of a desert toad. Several major veterans are backing the initiative Therapy Centers of Excellence Act, including the American Legion, Disabled American Veterans, Iraq and Afghanistan, Veterans of America, Veterans of Foreign Wars, and Wounded Warrior Project. By investing in research and access to breakthrough therapies, the piece of legislation tells who have sacrificed for our country that their votes are being heard and listened to, said Allison Jaslow, Chief Executive Officer of the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America. Supporters say the legislation builds on current psychedelic drug research by the VA that examines MDMA-assisted therapy for treating veterans with a dual diagnosis of PTSD and alcohol use disorder. MDMA-assisted therapy involves an individual taking prescribed doses of the drug in a supervised clinical setting with a mental health counselor. The VFW also urged lawmakers to consider psychedelic drugs as possible alternative to powerful psychiatric medications that can lead to overdose and addiction.
Absolutely. I mean, we all know that anyone who is suffering with a mental health condition is at a much higher risk of self-harm. They're at a much higher risk of substance use disorders. Alcohol being the main one. A lot of people turn to alcohol as a form of self-medication, which of course in turn leads to addiction. So if we can save them from those issues by using a psychedelic substance and some therapy, why are we not doing this? Nothing they're doing right now is having great success in the mainstream medical pharmaceutical era. These veterans have been on all the drugs. They've been prescribed numerous pharmaceuticals, and I can guarantee you most of them have already done therapy, but not had this success. But if we're seeing success with psychedelic substances, then why are we not just like, let's go, let's get this done. Everyone in the bus, let's go to the treatment center, let's get some psychedelics in you and some therapy and see if we can make you better. I don't see a problem with that.
I don't either.
No.
No problem here.
No, it seems to be all the government officials and big money makers that have the problem because they know this stuff is going to help people. And it's not going to be something you have to necessarily take every week, every month, or every day. We're seeing great success in just one treatment. So where's the money to be made, right? We don't want healthy people right now because that's not making us money, which is kind of a double-edged sword in my opinion, because now you have a population who's not contributing to the tax system because they're not working. They're reliant on their drug coverage, which costs that company money. So, I mean, yeah, you're making money off insurance benefits for these prescriptions, but that person isn't functioning and contributing to your overall economy. So if they looked at it from that perspective versus let's keep them sick and reliant on the drugs so we just keep making money off the drugs, they actually, in the grand scheme of things, overall, I think would be financially better off. But these people just one-track mind. Can we make millions of dollars on this? No. Okay, well, we don't want that, even though it works.
Is the senator making money for overseeing the study and conducted? The way they worded it, it sounded like they were working, and you know, and if it's for the bill studying it, should they get paid for doing research on a bill that they're creating in the first place?
They shouldn't, but you have to remember, behind the scenes, a lot of these politicians have investments in different companies, right? So is there some sort of conflict of interest somewhere along the line where, hey, you know, if this gets approved, I've got shares in this company that's trying to bring this to market.
But they're vets, so that might eliminate the money part.
Right. So there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that we probably don't know as well with some of these politicians, where they've got money in Pfizer, so why would they want to invest in Therapsil, right? Because they're making more money over here versus over here. And it could be the same in the psychedelic scene, because a lot of this is self-funded studies, right? Where they're lobbying people to give them money for their studies because they can't get any grants, right? So there could be some conflicts of interest, but it's hard to say. I mean, that would be a deep dive into, you know, where do these people have their money invested behind the scenes?
Right. I agree. So thank you for joining us here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network. And for tuning in to our video podcast on NOK Network's Rumble and YouTube pages, as well as our social media sites.
That's right, folks. We hope you've enjoyed your update today of mainstream media coverage of psychedelic news and advancements from around the world.
Many thanks to our sponsors. Oh, I got confused for a second. And to my joint host, Tara Simpson, and from Buffalo Various for making this show possible. And to you're over here. There you are. You. Where's my lines? Oh, our listeners for joining each week on Psychedelic Tuesdays. Let's hear from Dead Ringer again from Kirkland Lake on our way up. Bye! I'm looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty